trees in the backwoods night. Red lights cutting through the pine in flight. Bigfoot stomping with his yearling beard. Whispers of tales that ain't too clear. UFOs buzzing solo through the haze. Howling banshees set the forest ablaze. Jersey devil howls drink rays to the sky. Drunken cryptids party until the morning's night.
To good times.
Raise your glasses to the mysteries divine. It's showtime, let the cryptids realign.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. I'm your host Matthew. I just want to say thank you to everybody out there who's been liking, sharing, and enjoying the show. Leaving comments, I appreciate it. I see it. Quick shout out though to blademedia.com. Make sure you go check out Blade Media, BLAYED media.com. And of course, don't forget to check out, we are doing a fest on June 6th of 2026. That's right, we got some special speakers coming down. It's going to be myself, Todd Neese, Justin England, possibly Rod Nichols. We're going to do a VIP section. It's going to be in North Little Rock, Arkansas. The tickets are for sale for the VIPs on Eventbrite. The rest of the event is going to be free to the public. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I want to put that information out there. So we're hoping to see you guys in June. You know, we got Tunnel Spirits, Mist Monsters and Mollusks, Nevermore Hollows. I mean, Cryptids of the Corn. There's going to be so much happening, you guys. You're going to want to be here for it. So definitely June 6th of 2026. Come on down. This is going to be Scott, all the way from Michigan. So Scott, how you doing? I can hear you, but I can't see you, and we're trying to figure out the camera situation.
How's it going, man? Sorry, I sound like crap. Yeah, for whatever reason, I keep on getting booted every time the camera's on. It keeps on being like, sorry, your recording's going to stop, and you make sure your camera's on your end. But I mean, if you can hear me though.
Yeah, I can.
Know what I'm saying? So I apologize for that, though. I've never actually had that happen.
No, well, it's funny because, when I was doing interviewed Randy Bauer, we had the same issues. We were having a hard time with it. And then on Friday, I was interviewing Rod Nichols out of Bear County, and his camera would freeze up, then would unfreeze and freeze and unfreeze. So, I don't know whether it's a slight glitch or whether or not, I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but you know that, sometimes when we talk about these topics or bring them up, there seems to be a glitch in the matrix for us.
Things happen, and yes, I'm doing the bunny ears right now.
Things happen.
Exactly.
But, well, Scott, man, why don't you tell everybody real quick where they can find you at, and let's get jumped in, man. Tell us how this got started for you.
All right, guys, you can find me on Facebook. My Facebook group is Urban Bigfoot. It actually, my quote, I'm hoping to go with t-shirts eventually here pretty soon. The quote says it's not theory anymore, it's interaction. Like that's where I'm going with things now. So that's how you'll be able to know that that's the proper one, because that will be the cover photo, Urban Bigfoot. And man, most people that I talk to, when they say they got started in Bigfoot and cryptozoology, they tell me they never really had much of an interest at all, or they didn't believe, and something crossed their path, and now they're intrigued. You know what I mean? Everybody has an encounter, then the interest. For me, I was 6 years old in the library, and all the kids were going after the Calvin and Hobbes books and Garfield and all the stuff that was big at that time in the early 90s. And I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but I'm being pulled off to the left where the paranormal stuff is, and the demonology and the Ed Lorraine Warren books. And this Bigfoot book that had the old school orange tape on it, which you know exactly what I'm talking about in the binding, I'm like, this has my attention. And it was On the Track of Bigfoot by Marion T. Place. It was like 1977, 1978, which I believe is the golden era for Bigfoot, definitely. And I was I would check it out every chance I got. Read it cover to cover. Guys were trying to make traps to catch him in the Sierra Nevadas, and I was just like caught ever since. It was more of a, it's naive to think that they're not out there. You know, there's a lot of woods, there's a lot of unexplainable stuff. Why wouldn't there be Sasquatch? So I was always a believer. And I grew up in rural northern Michigan, so there was a lot of territory up there that would have been very squatchy. And I was too little to really know what the phenomena was, but when you're older and you kind of look back, it's like, okay, those tree breaks were precisely 8 or 9 feet off the ground, and they were facing water. It's like, there was phenomena going on. I just didn't know what it was. I was just too little, you know? And then when I had my first experience, actually, after doing this for nearly 30 years, my first actual experience was in Athens, Ohio in July of 2023. Me and my girlfriend at the time, and I kind of deliberately wanted to get some squatchy areas, just think, hey, you know, this isn't about the Bigfootery, but this is more about why not get the best of both worlds if I can. So we're having a fire, and this is on some farmer's property, like a mile into the forest, in a town that only has like a population of 500 or 600 people anyway. So this was about 27 miles from Hocking Hills, so that's already a Bigfoot hotspot as it is. So
Yes, it is.
exactly, her and I we're in this tiny little Airbnb, which is basically like a camper put on top of like a deck, is what it was. You had to have this crank handle to kind of have power to power the place up a little bit. It was pretty primitive, man, and it was really kind of in the foothills. So you had a lot of ridge lines and stuff, so we were definitely being watched. So it was about 9 o'clock at night, and we had the fire going. And for me, I think the most authentic thing to use for wood knocking would be like a piece from a cord of firewood. That's going to give you the most solid knock, especially if you're doing it in a sequence of 3. So I'm knocking against the birch tree, and I kid you not, and this is just me being half serious, half funny, and I kid you not, I'm knocking on that tree, and I stop, and she's like, wait, my girlfriend, and she goes, I think that was wood knocking, and I was like, yeah, that was, and that was after I did it, so you know dang well something was out there intelligent. So I didn't think much of it, and then as it started to get darker, I just started filming, because I've found that when you go over your footage later on, that is often where you're going to find the most of your evidence. Your camera's going to catch what your eyes aren't. So I'm facing over to these areas where I'm hearing noise from, which isn't that far from the campfire. And as I'm going over the footage, I'm seeing these bipedal things like moving through the woods, and I didn't think much of it, you know what I mean? It could have been deer, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So when we start feeling like we're being surrounded, I'm like, let's just go inside the cabin, lock the door. Mind you, it was just one of those tiny little like weak camper door locks, you know, just enough to kind of, it's like the old school toilet stalls in school. Just enough to keep someone out.
A little latch.
Exactly, that's all it was. And we go inside, and that's when the phenomena really started. I'm like, all right, lights are off. Maybe it's raccoons. Stuff is scratching the side of the side of the cabin as if to carry like a stick, and just kind of dragging it along the siding like, you're not alone. And I'm like, it's not spooky season yet, it's still July. And it's like, after that, when you walked into the place, straight back was like where the bedroom was. And that was kind of like an add-on to the place, so that was like 9 feet off the ground, and that's where the window was. I had fallen asleep at some point, and had to have been 1, 2 in the morning, and she wakes me up, and she's like, something on 2 feet is walking super loud towards the window right now. And mind you, she's a skeptic, massive skeptic. It's not that it's not real, but she needs to have the evidence to support it, you know? She's more of a scientific approach, and she's like, something on 2 feet, I kid you not, is walking to the window, and I'm like, I don't doubt it. Like, I don't doubt it. And she said, when she woke me up, and I heard one of the footsteps, I was like, what the heck was that? Except I didn't say heck, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
That's when it just walked off into nothing. Just nothing, completely gone. Where did we go with that?
She wakes you up.
Oh yeah,
Wakes you up.
she wakes me up, I hear one kind of like, one footprint, I'm like, what the heck was that? And that's when they just kind of stopped. like it just kind of walked off into nothing. There was no more footsteps, no more noises, nothing. And then for probably an hour, we just kind of sat there somewhat terrified. And then I feel something, I'm laying there, and all of a sudden we feel something grab the door. Like actively grab the door and give it a jerk as if to open it. And I'm like, I don't know how, besides the grace of the good Lord above, why that lock didn't break. But something that would have had to know, you would have had to pull and jerk it back. You would have had to have a thumb to kind of open that door. You would have had to have somewhat of an opposable thumb to even be able to get it open, to even know it's kind of like a lift up and pull back sort of mechanism. So that's why I'm like, that could be a Sasquatch too, man. So I'm like, let's go back to bed. Let's just go to sleep. We'll wake up and we'll get out of here in the morning. Knowing dang well I'm going to be looking for tracks. We're not immediately leaving. Like, that's not going to happen. Sorry, I'll meet you at the car, babe. And it's like 3, 4 a.m. All of a sudden, something just charges into the side of the cabin as if to, like, rush it, as if to try to shove it off of the foundation that it was sitting on. And I'm like, dude, this is, whatever this is, either doesn't 100% want in, or this is a really strong cabin, because this thing should have been able to run right through it. And I'm like, okay, there's no going back to bed now at this point. So after that, that's when I was going back over all the footage and stuff. I'm like, if I can't see it in the dark, I'll go back over it later on when I'm just chilling at home when we get back. So we found probably 7 or 8 Sasquatch were watching us that night, not far from the fire, probably a whole clan of them. There was a massive one, and I have to go through my Google Photos to find it, but he had a sheep from the local farm that we had the Airbnb on. The Sasquatch was carrying a sheep, and this Sasquatch had to have been over 400 pounds, over 8 feet tall. Literally had the back hand, you could see the thumb, like where the thigh would be on the sheep, you could see the mane on the sheep. I'm guessing it was already dead. Otherwise it would probably be screaming, bloody murder. So this thing was probably 200 feet from our campfire, just walking right on by with the sheep, like, I'm taking this on home to dinner. And I mean, they're known to kill and steal and eat livestock. I just didn't think that my first encounter would have that incorporated with it. I'm like, this is some old school encounter type stuff for my first encounter. This is cool, okay. And after that, it's like, now I was always a believer, now I'm a knower. The rabbit hole's different now. It's no longer, are they real? It's like, yep, what are they? That's where it's at now for me. And that's why I started Urban Bigfoot, to show awareness that these things are literally in the city too. They're not just in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I just interviewed Ron Nichols, like I said, from Bear County, and he's down in San Antonio, and they've got him in the suburbs down there, and he's on the same page as you are. And, me and him talked off air, and I told him about you, and, that you were going to be coming on, and, I got to get you guys a link up, because he does a lot of tree structures.
Okay.
So he goes, so that's what got him on this path, was he was YouTubing and found a guy out of Utah who was talking about tree structures, and he binged all of his episodes. And he was like, well, I'll go out and look at the woods. Why not? I'll follow this guy, know what he said, what to look for. And he goes, right off the bat, me and my son found one. And I was like, I'll be honest with you, there's more evidence out there that we don't realize, that most people, when they go out hiking into the woods, or they do the B&B, or they get a cabin, they're there to enjoy nature. They're not really paying attention to, as you said earlier, that tree break is 8 to 9 feet off the ground. It's not normal. Those trees stacked up right there, that's not normal. Or they're going to rationalize and say, oh, somebody's here, somebody's been doing that, someone's been, and not realize. But once you have your encounter, it seems the whole world, just the veil gets lifted off. And you start seeing, the forest for the trees, if that makes sense.
For sure. Absolutely.
So like, I'm going with the theories right now on, on how they're moving and how they're walking, and their lack thereof walking. So, which is pretty cool. For where me and my buddy Vance, this morning we were talking, and he's like, dude, you need to make a t-shirt. I was like, I'm going to make a t-shirt off of this. But, yeah, so that was in 2023. So the tree knocks. So my only concern and issue with tree knocks is, I don't want to do tree knocks in the woods, because if that is a form of communication, I don't want to give the wrong impression or say the wrong thing. I don't want to be like, hey, I'm available for a date, and I'm not, if that makes sense. Or I just called it, or just called it a horrible name. And that's why I'm wondering if the tree knock sometimes why we do get some aggressive encounters is because of the tree knocks that we're doing.
I thought of that, like maybe that's why they rushed the cabin and were as, in your face attempt as they were trying to be, was because something I said or did with the wood knocks. Because I don't usually wood knock anymore because I know I'm never going to hit the level or decibel to respond to whatever it is that they're saying. I mean, that's even if it's a wood knock. I think they could be tongue pops. They could be, rock claps. There's so many different things that they could be. I just don't want to say the wrong thing, and I wonder if maybe I did. And that's why my first encounter was a bit more aggressive. Well, thank God the cabin held up.
Well, what I do like though is with it being an aggressive encounter for your first time, um, you're wanting to dig into it. A lot of folks who have aggressive encounters for the first one seem to not ever want to encounter another one again. So that's what I see.
Man. Like, send me, give it to me. You know what I mean? Give me all the stuff, I've had things thrown at me. We've been bluff charged. I mean, if you're spending any amount of time out there to trigger behaviors, you're doing the right thing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, we got a really cool research area that we're not into right now because of deer season. And the people's property, they want us there. The neighboring properties, because they're deer hunting on it, they don't want us there until after deer season. So we're kind of shut down for the moment, but the people are still having a lot of activity, even to the point where they went and bought a bigger floodlight for their back to try and keep them away from the house. They don't want them gone. They just don't want them to get up close and personal. If that makes sense. And we had a great night of eye shine. And I've never seen eye shine this big before. I mean, the eyes were at least 2 inches in diameter. They were about 6 inches apart. And the funny part is, if you listen to the show, I mean, everybody's already heard me describe to where, it started off about your stomach, midriff height, and it flowed from, left to right and dropped down lower. And then it moved from left to right again. At one point, and I'm getting close to it, I'm within 10 feet. Excuse me. And it blinked. And I'm not gonna lie, when it blinked, I did take a step back. I was like, oh, okay, you're real. You're real.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start getting closer. I've been growled at, I've been huffed at. And it was quite, I've had the skunky smell. I've had a cat poop smell. I should not be smelling, and I was writing it off to a bobcat on the cat poop. And I had to think about it. A bobcat's diet is going to be different than a domesticated cat's diet. And the smell that I was smelling was a domesticated cat's poop. How do I know that? I have a cat.
Same. I got 3, so I totally get it.
So, and I know exactly what it smells like. And we were all like checking our boots to see if we stepped in cat poop that night. And no, crazy, absolutely crazy. So, all right. So we were talking about, okay. So when I was talking to Rod, we discussed in the urban side, and you'll probably agree with me here. So with neighborhoods and suburbia expanding, more into the woods, what was wooded 20 years ago is not wooded now, seems like. We're expanding, or urban areas are expanding out there. And these creatures have to adapt. Like I'm in the middle, I'm in a suburbia area big time, and I've got possums in my backyard. I've got neighborhoods going around me, and I've got possums in my backyard. I've got raccoons going. So but here's the thing too, we don't see them during the day, so they're obviously hiding somewhere in our suburban areas. And, why couldn't Squash do something similar?
It's true. And when you factor in the fact that it's really easy to hide when most people don't believe you exist, they're standing right in the tree line watching you and you have no idea. Because after being in the field extensively for like the last 4 or 5 years, really doing the field research and trying to trigger new behaviors and responses and stuff in the woods, they are just out of camera focus is where they're watching you. About 40 times zoom. 40 times zoom is about where you're going to get activity, because that's where they're out of the naked eye, and that's where the camera barely picks them up. So it's like...
I'm wondering also for their vision. I wonder if they're doing that for their vision because it's the same way. they're keeping us at their distance safety for them, because I don't think they know what a camera is. I don't think they know what a game trail, a game trail cam is. They're intelligent creatures, but I don't think they know what these things are. And now the woo ones do, because again, like I tell everybody, once you start going down these rabbit holes, you're going to enter into the woo. And we can't just separate, okay, flesh and blood, middle of the road, and woo. We have to kind of combine it all together. So I think the non-woo ones don't know what these things are, so they're curious, but they're also apprehensive. They're extremely shy, obviously.
Yeah.
And then they're not, which is crazy, to where they're not shy. And they seem to know when to not be shy, when we're not able to capture any of the evidence of them. Or when we do capture it, I mean, let's be honest, I'm not a professional photographer. I'm not able to get the snow leopard. Or, what's that one? They had that one leopard, I think, in Mongolia. That is so hard to capture, to where they spend months at a time to try and get any film of it.
Man.
And that's what a lot of people don't realize too. They're like, hey, there's so many people in the woods now with phones. And I tell people all the time, it's like, okay, let's time it. Put your phone in your back pocket. Ready? I'm gonna start walking. I'll tell you when you see me to get your phone out to take a picture and see how long it takes you to do that.
Yeah.
And by the time they do it, I'm gone. It's that simple. And everybody's, with age of cameras everywhere, I'm in the woods. If I'm just in the woods, but doing my wood thing, not an investigation, my phone's in my back pocket. I'm not worried about trying to take pictures. I'm enjoying the moment. Even on my investigations, I do that. My phone is in my back pocket, or it's in my side pocket. I'm not even thinking. Like the night of the eye shine with Chris, neither one of us, and Chris had a camera around his neck, and neither one of us thought to take the picture.
See, that's not where your mind's going to go when you experience something like that anyway, because you're like, wait a minute, what the heck is in the woods that has a half a foot of distance between its eyes? I mean, that would be native to the area where you had the encounter happen. Because I had the same thing. The eye shine was probably 5 or 6 inches apart. And it was probably crouching at about the 4-foot mark, because there was like a horizontal tree branch was snapped over, and they always move left to right or right to left, and they kind of jump from crouched to standing. And it's like, okay, they're just observing us. This is like a recon pattern that they're doing.
So on that token, but we had about the same height, Dan, and the way it flowed. Now, see, our head didn't bob. It was a straight, fluid, there was no bobbing, when you walk, your head bobs, you move. Animals do it, everything does it. But this thing was just a straight line. And that got me thinking. 90% of encounters out there always starts off with the one sentence, and that is, it stood up. It stood up. It stood up. And I was racking my brain going, okay, it stood up. Why is it standing up? Is it just down in a crouch, or what's it doing? The next one is how it moves, and how all of a sudden, we'll be following a pair of tracks, and now the tracks are gone. Okay. Now, some of the theories are out there. There's interdimensional. They're jumping into dimensions. They're, boom, 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 hopping on that way. And my other thought was, okay, let's go back to the one strange phenomenon that a lot of people are coming forward with and witnessing, and that's the spider crawl. So if you think about how a spider moves, the legs move, the body does not. The body stays right there, centrical. So it's not going to move. It's on its own steady platform. The head's going to move the same way. It's going to flow. And I think with them crouching and moving as a spider, that makes it more quiet, and it's easier for them to get prey.
Yeah.
They're going to be an ambush predator. They're going to have to ambush. And so if you're a giant 8 to 12-foot creature, you're going to kind of stand out. I don't care what you say. I don't care what everybody says. The deer are going to notice you. But if you're down that spider crawl, the way a cat moves, and a cat gets down and starts, creeping up, they're lowering down, they're ready to pounce. I think the spider crawl is more of a movement that they do than they are upright. Because if you think about it, when they are upright and they are moving, they're swaying their arms. They're like cross-country skiers. So are they trying to maintain their balance? Is that why their arms are swaying as much as they are, to try and keep that balance going? Because when I walk, I don't sway my arms much.
It's probably because of the mid-tarsal break. They have to lift up their entire foot with each step, so the bottom of their foot would be parallel to the calf. They don't have the flexible, like we do with the arch, where when we step, it just goes to here. They have to go like all the way like this, and then step back down. So I bet you that's a balance thing. They have to have that cross-country skier because it'd be like lifting up snowshoes with each step. Like that's all I can figure. That's the only way for bipedal locomotion to work for something of that size.
I agree, and I think the spider crawl is easier for them to move.
And it's terrifying.
Upright.
Fast they move. Little like tippy little fingertips and tiptoes, man. Like, can you imagine walking out on your porch, like in Appalachia, and like a Sasquatch just spider crawls out from under your porch? Like, I've read encounters like that.
Yeah, exactly, they're out there, and that's the thing. A lot of the times when the spider crawl encounters come out, people are afraid to come forward with the encounter. They're afraid to discuss it because this is not something you're supposed to see. And then the other thing is 90% of people who've seen it do the spider crawl never want to see it again. They want have nothing to do. There was a guy in Northern California, and he was going to retire, and he was a big fan of Bigfoot. He wanted to have an encounter. He was really huge. He wanted to see it. He was a big believer. So he found this area with lots of reports. It seemed like it was a highway for Sasquatch moving through. And they found a house for sale right in the middle of it. So he talked his wife into buying this house to retire out of so he could have a Sasquatch encounter. They move, they get there, and he's got game trail set up. They're feeding deer. They're doing everything. He's enjoying the deer one night, and he realizes the deer are acting weird, and he happens to look, and he sees one upright drop down into the spider crawl and start going after this deer. And
it would be amazing and terrifying all in one.
So he sold the property, and they moved. Yeah, saw it. I'm good. I'm happy. And it was done with. I'm like, that. I mean, the spider crawl thing. Yeah, so I'm sticking with the spider crawl theory for now. I am. I'm thinking that's how they move. Also, if you think about, how many times have you seen handprints, knuckle tracks?
Point.
I'm a bipedal creature. I don't go put my hand to the ground, hardly, never.
That's true.
The only reason I put my hand down, or my hand down at all, is either A, catch myself if I fall, or B, if I'm crawling.
Okay. See, I have a theory here, like in urban environments. I think they're using the culverts to travel. Those huge cement pipes that connect to all the different drain lines, like in urban environments, are like 8 feet wide, 8 feet tall. I think they're using those. And because most of those, if you follow them, they're crawling through. And if you look at the splash lines, like after it rains, it would be about shin level with something that's 7 or 8 feet tall. So something that's trying to, work its way through there as much as it can, it's going to be splashing. Especially being that they don't have the foot type that we do. You know what I mean? They have the mid-tarsal break, so they would have to really use their arms a lot. So I think that's how they travel here, and most of those intersect with game trails as well. It seems like they know where that's at because that's where the water is, that's where the deer go. So the Sasquatch are like, all right, let's give this a try. And it's like an ambush type tactic. So I think that's how they travel here.
That makes sense. That absolutely does make sense. And I think they can, with the spider crawl, even with the structures that are out there, most of the structures are going to be between 4 and 5 feet tall. If you're an 8 to 10 foot creature, why are you going to build something that low?
Yeah. That's true.
I think a lot of the structures are set up as a hunting blind because most structures are set up right on or right near game trails.
Okay.
So if you're in a spider crawl, they just grab.
And see, I think they use already existing shelters and structures as well, too. Like there's, where my gifting area is an old, what I've discovered, it's basically an old survivalist camp. A lot of bushcraft shelters, a lot of 550 core hold them together. I found a lot of like Prohibition era liquor bottles. I found a couple knives that were 30, 40 years old. Like it's amazing just to go treasure hunting over there, man. But this is where the Sasquatch come through a lot too, because there's a thoroughfare right there, and it leads right to a cornfield. If you're going from the west and you're heading towards like the gifting area, they have to travel past the river over a runway because there's an airport right next door. But what's underneath that runway? Those giant drain culverts. That's going to take them directly into the tree line up and over the fence. Nobody knows that they were ever there. And when you're cutting through the grass, unless you're looking for impressions that resemble feet, nobody should be on that grass anyway because that's right next to the runway. You know what I mean? So if you find imprints, you know they're probably Sasquatch. And I think that's a thoroughfare. They're cutting through the back half where the planes land and coming through the back there, and that's where the old survivalist camp is. Me and my buddy have found an old 1940s water pump half sticking out of the ground. We found old tents, deer blinds. I found broadheads, PBR cans from the 70s. Like, it's a really cool little spot, and that's where the Bigfoot's coming through.
Not being used. Yeah. I mean, because, the one property we have up in Bald Knob, we found a structure, and it was about 4.5 feet tall, but was wide. It was long. And, and that's what got me thinking of it being a hunting blind, because, I mean, it goes in a little bit, but it's really not going to protect you too much from the elements, at all. But right parallel beside it are 2 game trails on both sides of it. And that got me thinking, well, what if it's a hunting blind? And, I was going, okay, so what if maybe they learned it from the Native Americans or the Native Americans learned it from them?
That's what I think.
So, I mean, especially with some of the teepee structures out there, one of, they're copying from what the Native Americans were doing or vice versa.
Or like when you see the huge 10, 12-inch trunks that are 8 or 9 feet off the ground and the whole tree is just knocked over, like right near where a game trail is or right where a trail would start to turn. I think that is a Native American tactic right there. When you chase the deer, as soon as there's anything in its eyes, it's going to have to change trajectory. And in that point, the other Sasquatch ambushes it when the other one forces it to the pinch point. And I think those trees, some of those breaks mark the ambush points for the deer.
That's a good one. I like that.
So I do think that. It's like this one herds him in, this one finishes the job.
Well, that makes sense because, in most encounters as well, if you see one, there's another one.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one right there. And that's what's funny, to where I can't remember the guy's name, and forgive me, because I can't put your name out the top of my head right now. But he was picking berries as a kid, and him and his cousin were having a contest who could pick the most. Then it was berry patch. And his cousin suddenly drops his bucket and goes taking off. And he goes, I'm going to beat you. And he's hearing this weird whistling noise coming from his right. And he's looking, he sees berries. He's already looking to grab the next batch. He's picking, and looking. As he's looking for the next spot, putting his hand in the grab, instead of grabbing berries, he grabbed fur. And there was one right there. And that messed him up. He's about 12 years old, if I recall. And and I'm just like, whoa, I don't know how I would react to that. I mean, I'm a big bad dude, in my opinion, in the woods, and nothing really scares me out there. But if I was to put my hand in the bush and there's fur, I don't know. And then you can see part of it, And
depending on what you believe they are and how they came to be and all that, what you're touching. You know what I mean? Like what I believe they personally are is like 3 different things. So I'm grabbing the fur of something that should not be. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and that's the funny part about. So, all right, tell us about your eye shine story. I want to hear about your eye shine.
Okay, actually, the eye shine happened just a few months ago. It was like Michigan was brutally hot for like a few straight weeks this summer, and I'm like, all right, Sasquatch seem to move. They like it when it's cooler, but they still move when it's hot too. They got to do what they got to do. So me and my buddy went out there, and I'm like, this is going to be our first Facebook Live for like Urban Squatchers or Urban Bigfoot Live. And even before I went live, we started hearing stuff. And like I said, the whole area where most of the activity happens runs parallel to the runway where the little airport is next door. So there's a lot of like tall trees that are split at the top, like they're forked, so they'd be perfect vantage points for a Sasquatch to do recon or just to keep an eye on like a certain sector of the forest. So I think they're watching the game trails from up high, but I also think sometimes they give themselves away because they're so heavy that they snap the tops of those trees off. And that's exactly what happened when we turned the corner. It sounded like the first Rambo, man. It was when Stallone fell through the tree on First Blood, when he jumped over the side to get away, and all the branches were snapping on the way down. That's what this sounded like. And I'm like, what is that heavy up there that would be causing that kind of damage coming down? And what would be up there that would have any business climbing a tree? Bears, very, very, very infrequent in southeast Michigan. Marines, pretty much infrequent in Michigan, period, anymore. There's just not many of them left. Coyotes, they're not going to go 15, 20 feet up a tree. Cats, there's not even too many wild cats down this way. So what's going to be up 15 or 20 feet in the air with that kind of weight to it? Sasquatch. So we look down and we just see like a little glimpse of brown hair, and this thing just hits the ground, hops the fence, it just takes off and keeps on going. And I'm like, we're not even on camera. I don't even have this on film yet. I'm like, it's going to be a busy night, bud. And he's just like, my buddy behind me, I'm like, I told you, man, this just gets more and more exciting. Excuse me. And probably another quarter mile in, we're seeing all the eye shine from the deer, all the eye shine from like the little critters, like the raccoons and the possums and stuff. And then I'm like, dude, look at this eye shine. Straight sockets, they were deeply embedded sockets, like two solid green coals, just glimpsing, just back at us, just staring. And I had my headlamp on, so that was kind of adding to the silhouette of what this thing was. And I'll send you the photo of like the zoomed in still that I got from the screenshot. Just above the eyes, there's a brow line. Then there's like spikier hair where the forehead skin contrasts with the top of the head, just like a Type 1 Bigfoot would look like. And these eyes are probably 5.5, 6 inches apart. When this thing stood up and took off down the path, and it didn't really take off. The whole time, I was probably 45 or 50 feet away from this thing the entire time, and we were actively filming it. Like at the whole minute and 10 seconds where we had it like on camera, I have that isolated, so I'll go ahead and send you that and you can check it out. And it starts walking away on two legs. Just, and it stops, turns back and looks at us. And I'm like, dude, we're going to have to, I don't know what we're going to do. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know what the heck we're going to do. So I just kind of like stomped forward a little bit, like, all right, that's enough. You know what I mean? Like, that's your boundary. And then it just turned around and stomped away and then took off into the woods. And 40, 50 feet away the whole time. And this thing is just moving silently until it doesn't want to be silent. Like, just so you know, guys, I can be quiet like a ninja, or I can let you know I'm here. And I think that is just the coolest thing about them, how they can contrast their decisions and actively, you know, make tactical choices on the fly in the woods. Like that just supports what I think they are, personally.
I think that's awesome. You know, for our eye shine, we were, like you said, we were about starting out maybe 15 feet from it. And we couldn't see nothing with the flashlights, our headlamps on, nothing. All we got was eye shine. I mean, that was it. And we're moving up towards it. I mean, we could not get anything. I think if we had gotten pictures, we probably could have seen a little bit more. You know how it is with the picture, getting the enhanced color, you know, brightness and everything. We might have been able to see more, but yeah, it's crazy. I like the fact that it turned. I wonder if I was wanting you to like follow it, the way it stopped and looked over at you.
Yeah, not happening. Don't know enough about you guys. Well, we'll talk about that later.
Well, see, Mike, you know, I'm the dumb one, and I probably like going, let's go follow it. I mean, yeah. I mean,
when pushing the envelope is probably going to be more beneficial versus where it's probably going to really ruin your time out there. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's hard to make those decisions and not what happens as a result.
Well, you know, and that brings up too. I mean, you know, back in December of last year, those two researchers that disappeared and they found dead 3 days later on Christmas in Washington State. Did you hear about that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so what was really odd about that was, you know, if you're going out to the woods, and even if you're semi-amateur, you check the weather.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. You check the weather. I mean, you know, if I'm planning an event, I'm planning an investigation, I'm looking, you know, because you don't look 2 weeks out. But I mean, I'm watching the weather patterns. I'm seeing what's going to be happening, and I'm going to pack accordingly. these two guys were only supposed to be there for a day, come back that night, and they died due to exposure in 3 days.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. Here's the thing, though. There wasn't a whole lot of info released about the backgrounds of those guys, what kind of outdoor skills they had. Do they have military background? Like, it was just kind of like two hikers found dead on Sasquatch expedition. Funny how nobody dropped any more details about it.
But there was more details, and it was a little blip on the radar. You're going to love this one.
Oh, okay. But, like, in mainstream media, it was just died of exposure, likely. And the Sasquatch is just like the passing thought. You know what I mean?
So the day they recovered the bodies, all right, that night, the county search and rescue team's equipment was stolen out of the compound. If it was not nailed down, it was taken. Every scrap, where the sheriff's department actually started a GoFundMe to replenish all their equipment.
And who would have any interest whatsoever in taking all of the evidence and devices used to collect said evidence? Uncle Samuel, of course.
Yeah, it's just a bit odd to me. And that one, I did a quick little episode on it when it came out.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I didn't hear about it here at all. It wasn't, and so Todd needs to sent me the link, and he goes, check this out. And I was like, what? So we did it, we did as much of a dive into as we could. There wasn't a lot to dive into, to be honest with you, because there wasn't no information.
Mm-hmm.
But also, and I can't remember the name of the county off the top of my head, but the county they found the bodies in, there's a law on the books that it is illegal, and it's like a huge, like up to 100,000 fine or something like that if you harm any mythological creature.
Yeah, they literally have, and cryptids are protected.
Yeah, and I just thought that was kind of funny. It's where there's another county, and I think it's in California, I think, where it is protected. Bigfoot is on, you can't harm Bigfoot or anything, Sasquatch. But this one said any mythological creatures. That was the wording on the law. Any mythological creatures, plural.
It's like that's playing the plausible deniability card. Like, we know they're out there, but we can't directly address what they are. So, just so you know, don't kill it if you find it.
Exactly.
Or try to.
Find you. So I think something happened to those poor guys. I really do.
I think that, too. I think that's possible. Why not, right? When you pay attention to all these missing 411 cases, and you start to dabble in subterranean travel and Appalachian feral people and hungry or opportunistic Sasquatch and all that kind of stuff, man, it makes you really, really wonder. You know what I mean? Like, there's stuff out there, and no, sure, these guys, we can lie, and they could be special forces, and we can just lie and say it was just a father and son who didn't know what they were doing in the woods and died of exposure. 99.9% of people are going to buy that. When you mix Sasquatch and the subject, especially somebody who's relatively informed on what they are and what they're capable of, it's like, okay, that does make sense. But we're the crazy ones because we're the 1% that knows really what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it just, with basic common sense, I'm a great idea with my military background. So, when I go to the woods, I'm a little bit different than everybody else. But I do know anybody who's been, because they said they were researchers. They said they were actual Sasquatch researchers. So that tells me in the article, okay, they're experienced.
Yeah.
Why would they go out on Christmas Eve? Okay. Unless you're like going, hey man, family's getting together later on. You want to, it's an 1.5-hour drive. Just, go check out. Let's go hang out in the woods for a couple hours, man. Come back and hang out with the fam or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
They do, and they never come home. And they've been there before. They knew where they were going. Obviously. So, the whole case is, it's, once you start digging into it, and there's no names have ever been released. I've never been able to find a name.
That's because they put the kibosh on it before it got going too far. You know what I mean? They leave enough, and then something else happens, and then that takes the spotlight. But for guys like you and me, that's where we thrive. Let's look up all the old cases. One of my favorites, Dennis Martin, missing in 1969 in the Smokies. Dennis was playing hide and seek with his parents. He backed into the bushes a little too far and was never found again. Legit never found again, was within eyesight of people.
There was a young lady, same thing, to where she said she was going to get a picture, and it was a teenager, and they were like, they got where they're at. She said, I'm going to go down here. I want to get a picture of this view. And they were like, okay, gone. I mean, just never heard from, no trace of evidence. And then we have the other case of the kids too, though, of the big hairy man that took care of them.
Yes, that's one of my favorites. Like, okay, the way they describe it, the age that they are, they couldn't possibly have any preconceived notions on what it is. You know, that's a straight up Sasquatch. It's gotta be. It's gotta be.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's what, you know, and everybody always tells me too. So, where's your evidence for Sasquatch to be real? And I go, oh, cool. I'll counter with another question for you. Where's your evidence that it's not?
That's right.
There is more evidence out there that these creatures exist. They're real, and not just Sasquatch. I mean, we're talking with Dogman, Fae. I mean, all these other cryptids that are out there. There's too many accounts, too much evidence. You know, just because a scientist doesn't go, yes, it's real, doesn't mean it's not.
Mm-mm.
You know, prime example, the mountain gorillas in the 1920s, just 100 years ago, the mountain gorillas were discovered, you know, by science.
Mm-hmm.
Recognized by science, let's just say. And my argument on that one is as well, if you look at the history of all the explorers who were exploring Africa, Australia, the Americas, you know, going all over the place, they were all educated in that lovely country called England, and they were all, you know, from that college. So they were educated men. So they would get to these natives, and the natives would be like, you know, hey, there's a hippo. They go, you're right, it's a hippo. There's a giraffe. You're right, it's a giraffe. There's a weird dinosaur thing. No, you're stupid.
Yeah.
Because Cambridge says it's not real, so it's not real. And then the explorers who were coming back, no, this is real. We are finding the evidence. They were laughed at and shunned. It took forever for people to believe the platypus. And the platypus is one creature that should not exist at all. I mean, seriously, it's a venomous mammal that lays eggs.
Yeah.
Just that alone right there should, and you're like, what?
Or the octopus. It's got no known DNA of anything on Earth.
Exactly.
Like, it goes to show that an octopus is probably an extraterrestrial organism. Which,
I think we are.
the theory, what if you go with, like, the firmament being in the Bible, let's borrow that for a second, let's say the ocean is actually outer space, and that space is something else entirely. You know what I mean? Because we know more about space than we do the ocean. Like, think about that for a second. That's crazy. What if the...
Well, so let me throw this one at you. Do we really know more about space, or are we just theorizing and the scientists are saying this is fact?
True. That's true, too. That's why we're into this stuff, because nobody knows.
No, I mean, and that's not, to where I've made a good friend through the show. He is, he's an astronomer. He's great. We did an episode on the 3 AI that's coming in that everybody's going, it's a UFO, it's the aliens invading. And once it was coming in July, we did it, recorded an episode about it. And he's like, yeah, it does act weird. He goes, but it is just a meteorite. It's just an asteroid. It's not what everybody, making it out to be. The conspiracy, not a conspiracy, but the clickbait people are the ones who are saying that it is a craft. But, me and him were talking, he says the same thing. We can theorize and summarize what we believe this planet's like or what that system is like. And a lot of people take what they theorize, and when they're on TV shows or they go, well, and that theorized part is edited out. And they go, well, we theorize that Pluto is. Instead we go, well, Pluto is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
And, and that's just, if you think about it, that's how they do it. Kind of like how I feel about a lot of the TV shows out there that are looking for the cryptids and the paranormal. And, I'm not going to mention Oak Island, but I will. Because Oak Island's been doing this thing for 13 years now, and they still haven't found anything, but everybody still watches. I don't watch it, but I mean, everybody still watches the show because tune in next week to find out what that piece of wood was.
Mm-hmm.
And on the cryptid shows too, they're like, oh my gosh, what was that over there? Tune in next week. And you find out it was a raccoon.
It's just keeping the ratings alive. That's all it is. It's, you got, and don't get me wrong, I like a lot of the guys on the mainstream. I love Russ Acord, amazing dude, super awesome guy. But I do know that when you look at some of the way that the scenes are edited, you have Maria and Russ in a scene together that aren't actually in that scene. She filmed the day before, he filmed the day before that, they put them together and it makes it look that way, and it's like, dang it, man. Like, you know what I mean? It's not that organic, authentic experience. Like, anything that they experience when they're out there might be organic, but the whole process of filming isn't. Like, to me, it's like, I get editing, especially if you're part of, like, a contract deal or something, like with a studio, but I'm all about going live, man, Give it where it's at.
Well, also, the other thing I tell everybody, too, is just pay attention to their hair.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone camping. You've gone camping. Your hair, that's the biggie. Pay attention to the hair. And also, like shaving. If you're in the woods for a couple of days, you're going to get more stubble coming in.
For sure.
You should. Your hair isn't going to look, you're not going to be camera ready. But that's what people want to watch, and that's the sad part. So I have a hard time. Now, when I went on Circle for Sasquatch with Jason Kinsey last year, I was fully expecting, and I was on the fence. I was, okay, let me see. I was curious. All right, this show, let me see how he's going to do this.
He's such a funny guy, dude.
First rule he told me, he goes, all right, here's the rules. 1, don't fake anything. Do not fake anything at all. Don't throw rocks. Don't be trying to fake it. Nothing. I do not want anything faked. 2, don't run. He's like, whatever you do, don't run. If you get scared, stay with the group, but don't run, because that's going to kick in anything's predator prey instinct. And I can't remember what the third one was, but that first one, when he said, don't fake it. Oh yeah, he said, stay with the group. Yeah, don't want it alone. What's has been my rule always when I take my team out? We go in teams of 2, a minimum of 2 everywhere we go. And I was going, okay, so this guy legitimately wants to have, and capture on film real things, whether it's there or not. And like for our daytime investigation, we got some cool footage of us looking through caves and doing that. I mean, we really did, found some neat things, but nothing at all whatsoever. At night, when we did the night one, that's where it got interesting for us. And we did no faking, nothing at all whatsoever. And the episode, well, it's supposed to be dropping like any day as of this recording, so it may be out by the time this episode airs. So I'm like excited to watch it. It's episode number 17.
Okay.
The Ozark Howler. Like I said, I'm pretty excited. But so I was pretty impressed with how Jason wanted to run his show, and he does have the same, like he did wash his clothes so he could wear the same outfit all the way through.
Yeah.
So at night he's washing his clothes and everything. There at Tanisa's house. I changed shirts. Obviously, I'm wearing different shirts. So because I didn't wash my clothes. But I thought that was pretty cool that he was, he made sure that when we were getting ready to go on camera stuff, that he had the same outfit, everything that he was trying to do. And, of course, he's the star of the show. So he was trying to, be the star, but not fake it. He does get excited, which is a lot of fun to watch him, because when he gets excited, you get excited. You're like, oh, what was that over there? He goes running off. And, like at one point, he starts running off and everybody goes, they turn to look at me like, well, go after him. Now I'm wearing shorts and hey dudes. Okay. Yeah. I just want you to know this. At night, I'm wearing shorts and hey dudes. And I was like, I'm wearing an hey dude. And they were like, well, go after it. So there I am in the woods, climbing over trees with hey dudes on, chasing after Jason Kinsey. And all I can see is his light from the camera.
That's awesome.
Woods. I'm trying to catch up to him. So
I've watched the Searching for Sasquatch.
Do what?
I've watched most of his Searching for Sasquatch series, and being a Michigan guy, I'm especially partial to the Michigan episodes. So I'm like, next time you're in Michigan, bring me with you.
He's a great guy. We were going to try and record an episode yesterday, but he's at a conference or something like that. And he tried calling me, and this whole week has been really busy for me. I mean, having the kids, work, working on the launching the festival in June. So, double checking for interviews and stuff, because, the guys I have on the books are, to me, are priority, to be honest with you. I mean, you guys are when it comes to the show. So I'm in talks with another guy right now who was on a TV series, trying to figure out whether he wants to come on. It's not fully cryptid related, but it's a little passion of mine. I was a big fan of the show, so hopefully he wants to come on to the and discuss it. But okay, so all right, what is real quick because we're coming up on an hour here soon. What has been probably the most eye-opening experience besides the one of 2023? Because that's what I like. Is that this is new. This is new. Everything you're telling me is new. This isn't 20 years old, 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he did hit the nail on the head. 78, 77, that time frame right there was a good goal. The 70s was a big golden era, for Bigfoot. And even going to the 80s it was. But then it turned into a really weird to where it stopped.
Yeah.
And what I mean by it stopped, it seems like everybody out there is coming back and they're going, okay, tree knocks. And I can go, all right, tree knocks. All right, I can listen to that. I can remember that. But what you don't hear about during the golden era is the Sierra sounds. You don't hear about that. You don't go into any kind of communication, what was taking place with it. You don't. Dr. Meldrum, God rest his soul, he was one of the first actual, person with an alphabet behind his name that came out and said, yeah, I went out there to discredit these things. They're real. And, he took a huge gamble on it. And so we have some of that. And the only new information that's really come out has been the Paddy film, where they've actually broken down, using with the help of AI, and I'll give AI props up here. I'm not a big AI guy. So where they broke down the movements of Paddy, and they broke down the movements of a person in a costume, and there's no way that that was a person that costume. None. And the big key I tell everybody is this: if you look at Paddy's footage and what Paddy's doing, she's walking through a dried up creek bed with big rocks. You and me have to look down where we're at. Okay, and if you're wearing a mask, you have you have tunnel vision through both eyes. At that time frame, the masks weren't on still to your face. You had tunnel vision. You're going to have to look down. There is no looking down. It's a straight, good fluid motion of how she moves. So, but with you, and going out there since for the past 4 or 5 years, what has been the most compelling encounter that just really just like locked it in for you?
Like for Bigfoot, or just cryptozoological stuff in general?
How about I'll let you answer with however you want to go with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'd say the weirdest and most compelling piece of paranormal evidence that might indicate that Sasquatch is interdimensional. Personally, I don't think they are. I think it's one of those things where it's like they can't build their own portals, but let's say some sort of other entity down here created a portal. I think Sasquatch would have the ability to use that one. Like, they can go through doors other things have already made. And I think that with the supernatural DNA, based on what I think that they are, they know where all these weird rifts in space-time and all these strange nodes of craziness are on this planet. So I found a portal. Me and my buddy were out at 9:45, 10:15 at night. I'll never forget it. And I'm filming down this straightaway. And mind you, this area is in the back of our local park. This is where I've heavily researched for the last 3 or 4 years. And I look at this glowing white orb just start on the ground, kind of like a little bouncy ball. And we're probably over a quarter mile away. And this thing just starts getting brighter and glowing larger. And if you would have been right up on it, I would say it had to have been 15 or 20 feet across, probably 15 feet high. And I have a 47-second clip that is just the footage of the portal from start to finish. And you can go by frame and see things coming out of this that are bipedal in nature. They are climbing into the tree line that is right next door to this thing. And there's just probably 30 or 40 of them. Just huge glowing ball, Sasquatch coming out, jumping into the tree line. Just kind of like, hey, let's swing by and jump in the trees for a bit. And I'm like, on my phone, just like, there ain't no way in hell anybody's going to believe this. So what I'll do is I'll send you the video and you can take a look at it for yourself. And to this day, when I look at it, There is not a rational explanation in God's green earth that would explain what this is and why these figures are coming out of it.
Okay, so all right. I mean, that opens. Okay, so to me, so I'm almost now on the theory that there's two types of Sasquatch. We have the flesh and blood ones, and then we have the interdimensional ones. So, all right, trying to see how I could put this out there without trying to, I don't know, embarrass myself or anybody else. Okay, so so if you look at the dynamics of heaven and hell, all right, uh, you know, there it's a different dimension. So in heaven, that's another dimension. So obviously, we're going to have, people going to be in heaven, and we're going to have people in hell. And there's other dimensions. What if there are interdimensional Sasquatches that are coming through, and they can be tied in with the Fae folk? They could be tied in with, well, I'm a big proponent of the Fae. I really, really am. The more and more I research into the Fae, the more scary. I'm more afraid of Fae encounters out in the woods than I am of running into a grizzly bear. And I don't have any grizzly in Arkansas, but I'm from Utah and the Rockies, so we have grizz up there. I would rather run into a grizzly bear than I would the Fae folk, in all honesty, because they're not Tinkerbell. If you remember, Ace Ventura Picture Tip, the first movie, when he's trying to find Snowflake the dolphin and he gets hit by the shark, is like, that's not Snowflake. That's how I kind of feel about the Fae folk. That's not Tinkerbell. And they're really bad. And I think in some ways the Fae use Sasquatch or the image or the idea of Sasquatch to their benefit to either project it into us for us to think. Because there's, I can't remember the guy's name, but they followed a set of glowing eyes. And if he didn't know the property, he would have walked off a cliff.
Yeah.
Because these eyes were off of a cliff. I mean, they were over a cliff, and they were trying to lure them over to this cliff to follow it. And so to me, that has Fae folk written all over it. And of course, when it comes to Fae, you have more than just the fairies. I mean, you got the gnomes and the trolls and everything, that comes with leprechauns. Even.
For sure.
Really cool.
And then with the Fae too, you got the tree knocking. What a lot of people don't understand is it's a Celtic thing. Back in the day when they would knock on a tree, usually in a sequence of 3, like a lot of us do when we're doing it in the woods, I don't anymore, but in the past it was always a sequence of 3. That is how they would knock on the trees to try to talk to the tree spirits. So there's been talks of people who they claim they've seen Bigfoot walk up to a tree, basically knock on the tree open up, Bigfoot walks in, never to be seen again. So that would, if they are the forest people, they are the forest, that makes sense. That they could manipulate anything out there to basically their Swamp Thing. Basically, Swamp Thing is Bigfoot. I mean, technically speaking.
Well, I think the Predator is based on a Sasquatch encounter.
You think so?
Yeah, well, think about it. So if you look at the very first movie before they went to all the expansions, Arnold Schwarzenegger in the jungles, and how the Predator moves, how it disappears, the cloaking, everything, the shimmering oddness, and then the mimicking of voices.
That makes sense. But aliens were a bigger market for horror and action at the time. So they would have went with what that would have been, but basing it, hey, that makes sense. Kind of like letting somebody choreograph a movie and not giving them credit for it. That sort of idea. That makes sense.
Well, it's like the movie Sinners. I mean, the basis behind that was supposed to be the new Blade movie.
Yeah.
And instead, I'll be honest with you, I think they hit a home run with the movie Sinners instead of trying to go for Blade on that one. I mean, the actors in it were amazing. The story, the script was great. That was probably one of the best vampire movies I have watched in a very long time.
Soundtrack was phenomenal. The acting was phenomenal. I loved it too.
Loved it. Loved it. And another movie I've been telling people to watch is The Watchers, that was written by M. Shalmanite's daughter.
Yeah, that was the Nephilim, I believe, wasn't it, technically speaking?
Nephilim and the Fae.
Yep, okay. I don't know if I watched that all the way through yet, but I'm going to have to get back to it.
Oh my gosh, you have to. I mean, that is one of those to where I will spin it up just to watch it. Because there's so much information in there. And I love to where on that one alone, for, when he does it, when they do the twist, that's the end of the movie. You know, I mean, you got 10 minutes left and it's over. Nope, not on this one. When the twist happens, the movie's going on, and there's more evidence they're pulling out. Once you realize what these things are and everything, you're just like,
I'll have to check.
I was dumbfounded.
Oh man,
to where me and Joel Thomas up there in Ohio, we talked about that movie for probably 20 minutes. You know, just going, oh my gosh, I mean, how they tied this in. And the really cool part was when the 6 fingers came through.
Yep, 6 fingers. Yeah, and the Kandahar Giant, you know, the red hair giants of Lovelock Cave, you know, all the Watchers from Enoch. I mean, all of it's connected. It's all the same bloodline, at least inheritance in some aspect.
Yep, because I don't think Sasquatch. A lot of people are on the page that Sasquatch is tied into the Nephilim, and I don't. I don't think that it is. I do think it's. I'm almost to the idea, and I'm basing it off of Star Wars, which is I'm a big Star Wars nerd. And it kind of hit me a couple of years ago. You know, on every planet in a Star Wars universe, there's always a minimum of 2 sentient creatures. You know, we'll look at Tatooine. You got the Jawas and the Sand People. You know, we'll look at Naboo. You've got the humans and you've got the Gungans. You know, just use that just as a basis right there. Or even the planet Kashyyyk or Kashyyyk or however they pronounce it, where you know the Wookiees are from. There's you know you got the Wookiees, and then there's I can't remember the other, but there's another sentient creature that lives there as well. So I'm wondering if Sasquatch isn't our other sentient creature per se that's here. And if you look at the very first Star Wars that came out in '77, the Cantina scene. I mean, you have a Dogman.
Yeah.
You know, you've got a Dogman in there. You've got the, you know, if you look at some of the other creatures on it, they tie into some of the Greys. There's so much that's in that whole scene right there, and you're just like, what the?
I like that theory. I do like that theory. Now, my theory. I'm not going to take too long with it, but my theory and what I think they are, people want to trace them back to a bloodline. They want to say they're descendants of Cain, they're descendants of Esau. I don't think they come from any bloodline. I think that they're a separate creation entirely. And a lot of people will be like, well, they can't be because they weren't on Noah's Ark. Okay, well, it said God created all things that were good, not God created all things. I think that after the flood is when the war in heaven was. And when Lucifer and 1/3 of the angels came to earth, in Genesis 6:5, when they said there were giants in those days and also after, meaning post-flood, I think that at that time, that's when they were doing all their evil DNA manipulation stuff, breeding with women, breeding with like chimpanzees and apes, and you have all of these creatures that are now, they have fallen angel DNA, they have DNA of primates, and they also have the cognitive thought of humans. So now you have something that has the ability to realistically establish a relationship with, because now it has free will. So it's going to choose how it's going to be with you. You know what I mean? So it's kind of terrifying to think about what they are, if you believe the way I do, of course.
Okay, so you mentioned free will, and I was on the belief for years when it comes to free will that man was the only creature that he gave free will to, and I have to disagree. If we were the only creatures that was given free will, there would have never been a war or rebellion that happened.
You're right.
The angels had free will to decide to do that.
Exactly. And when it said 1/3 of the angels they chose to go with them.
That's free will.
You're like, fine, you're not going to give him whatever he wants, we're just going to go with him then. So they were able to make that choice. So they could have chosen to rebel against God at any given time.
Exactly. And I think also that there was a civilization pre-Adam here. I really believe that. I believe that the war in heaven was pre-Adam, because when Lucifer fell, he fell to the earth and the city shook. What cities?
Well, what cities would have existed at that time? Mesopotamia,
This is all pre-Adam.
Yeah, I mean, what would have been there pre-Adam? Tiamat. It would have been like maybe a breakaway of another planet or something. Maybe it could be. You know what I mean?
Well, they're also finding out right now that the pyramids, that the Egyptians didn't build them; they discovered them.
Which that throws everyone off for like the last years.
exactly. But of course, that falls back on what I was saying earlier about Cambridge. No, we're right. We're, it's where for me it'd be hard to be an archaeologist in today's because I'll never forget when I was a kid. Indiana Jones was huge. I wanted to be Indiana Jones as a kid. I really did. I think that'd be so cool. Travel the world, go discover these things. And I had a teacher that said, "Well, they've all been discovered. What are you going to find?" And I was like, "Man, that's kind of disappointing." And unfortunately, that stuck with me for years and years and years. And then I had to get out of that. And go, no, I think they're wrong. The technology and the information they base everything off of 150 years ago is old.
I agree
And
with
that's
that.
why, that's why, with the fest that I'm doing, I want to get new researchers in. I think that new researchers out there, we're the ones who are going to bring some, controversial topics to light. And we will. And we're not going and the thing is, with our theories, like my theory all the time changes. It really does. I mean, one week I'll be like, okay, I think Sasquatch is. And then the next week I'm like, okay, no, well, maybe it's that. Okay, well, no,
It kind of has
maybe.
to. Like, you can't have a static opinion all the time on what it is. Like, one thing I won't stop believing is what I think they are, but that doesn't cover what their abilities might be, what they could or couldn't do, what they may or may not be able to do. So there's still so many different rabbit holes. Just because I think it's a creation from the fallen angels manipulating, God's normal creations, that doesn't mean that maybe they are interdimensional. Maybe, like you said, maybe we have some that are just regular, more primate-like types, and then we have some that are more gifted. Maybe the bloodline gets diluted. Maybe the more further you down you get in the breeding population, the less likely you are to be gifted with any of these special abilities. Maybe only the elders. Could be a hierarchy. Could be anything, really. I mean, we could go forever with it, really.
Well, okay, so I'll bring it for landing on this one. Oh my gosh, the name of the movie just escaped me. It was right there. I was about to blurt it out. There's an animated movie that came out within the past year and a half or so. And if my kids were here, they would know it right off the bat because we watch it a lot. What is the name of that movie? And it's about mythological creatures who drive cars, live in buildings.
Oh, okay.
And the one kid's dad died when he was a baby. And Chris Pratt plays his older brother. His older brother's, really big in the Dungeons and Dragons for that universe. And, it's like a belief that, yeah, magic is real and magic existed. And on the kid's 16th birthday, he was gifted a staff from his dad that was up in the attic and told to wait till he was 16. They only create half of him. So only his legs. And they go on this journey to find the stone to use in the staff to finish the spell so they could see his dad. But what's funny oh my gosh, if somebody in the comments, please comment the movie. What is the name of that movie? Onward. That's it. Onward.
Okay.
So, and I highly recommend, and so my thought process is they start in the beginning, they show that the world was magical and they did this and then somebody, discovered electricity and somebody discovered you could just do that to have fire. If I was to take this 200 years ago, you know what I mean?
Witchcraft, straight up.
Yeah, I mean, well, maybe not only that though, but now technology, they're going to try and, look, like when gunpowder came in, everybody wanted gunpowder. Nobody thought it was witchcraft. They knew what it was. It was a new technology. So even with this, they're going to try and figure out how to do the same thing and get away from the magic of everything. I think Onward was showing in its own way that we've gotten away from magic in our world. Because if you look at, what's in the Old Testament, magic's in the Old Testament, spirits are in the Old Testament, ghosts are in the Old Testament. We've got everything paranormal, supernatural in the Old Testament. And even in the New Testament with Jesus talking, nowadays, if you mention, I have a haunted house, you're going to get laughed at. I saw a Sasquatch, you're going to get laughed at. Because, the thing behind me tells me that they're not real. The fact that we've gotten away from being in the woods, being in nature, to where 150 years ago, in Appalachia alone, their legends and stories and everything were there and alive and strong.
For sure.
So just something to look into. Well, Scott, real quick, man, I do want to have you back on in the future because I think this is a lot of fun. So I think, we get some more stuff going. I want to have you come back.
Absolutely, for sure.
Remind everybody where to find you at.
Guys, you can find me on Facebook. Go to the page Urban Bigfoot, or just go ahead and search my name. We can go that way, and then you're just gonna find the group that way, anyways. Once again, hit up Urban Bigfoot. Most all of my evidence is on there. Some of our lives have been on there, and feel free to go ask any questions. I'll cover missing persons cases, all that stuff on there, where Sasquatch might be involved. So come check it out. There's a little something for everybody.
Yeah, guys, it is a really cool Facebook page. So, and definitely go check it out. Scott's got some really good ideas that he wants to do. He caught me off guard with one, and I don't want to share it yet because I know you're going to try it out. Then involves a trail cam or where to put it. That was genius, by the way. I was like, oh my God, that was great. So by all means, man, keep doing what you're doing.
Same, dude. You too.
And I appreciate it, man. Don't forget though, June 6th, brother, if you want to come on down. It'll be a good time.
I'd love to. If you need any speakers, I'll talk too. I can talk. We all know that.
I love it. Well, come on down. We'll talk. If you want to do it, come on down. We'll set something up.
Absolutely, man. That sounds great.
All right. Appreciate it, brother. Hey, guys, thank you again for listening to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. And remember, we do have a bunch, we have a bunch of tiers on the Patreon. If something works out for you, great. All the episodes are on Patreon that are commercial free, intro free. And there's some bonus episodes in there as well. So make sure you check that out. Check out the tiers. There is a Buy Me a Coffee. So please, if you want to help support the show, buy me a coffee. Love coffee. Huge fan of coffee. Check out the new shirts coming out soon. Let's see here. And on top of that, if you've had an account, you want to come on the show, email me, drunkencryptids@gmail.com. Shoot me a message on Facebook. Follow us on your social media platform. Guys, I appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you for liking and sharing the show. And until next time, keep on squatching.
I can do it.